James Bradley is the most influential abolitionist that you've probably never heard of. His time in Cincinnati had a ripple effect, felt really across Ohio. Evan Millward explains Bradley's incredible life and the role Cincinnati plays in the fight to end slavery.
Maybe you've seen him sitting on a bench on the south bank of the Ohio River, book in hand.
He doesn't look like a lot of people in America think he ought to look, but everyone on the planet has this yearning inside them to be personally free.
James Bradley's story starts with a tragic journey brought to America when he was younger than 3 and sold as a slave. He landed in Charleston, South Carolina, and was brought up to Pendleton County. He was bought by a benevolent master, Bradley, and took his name.
The people who owned him did not mistreat him. We can't talk about beatings or starvation or anything, but he was not free.
That's an important distinction. In his own words, Bradley writes in an essay later in life,
"There is one thing about this that people in free states do not understand. When they ask slaves whether they wish for freedom, they say no, and very likely will go so far as to say they would not leave their masters for the world. But at the same time, they desire liberty more than anything else and have, perhaps all along, been laying plans to get free. The truth is, if a slave shows any discontent, he's sure to be treated worse."
Bradley saves money for years, working a farm and eventually working across the country to buy his freedom in 1833 for $700.
It sets a model for young black people or Spanish-speaking people, or for young Irish people for that matter, to understand that we live in a society that's driven by economics. So he bought his freedom. He learned to read.
As he crossed the mighty Ohio into Cincinnati, he had his sights on Lane Seminary. He certainly didn't fit in. He wasn't educated enough, but his story moved Dr. Lyman Beecher, Harry Beecher Stowe's dad and the preeminent Presbyterian evangelist of the time. In 1834, Bradley would find himself at the center of the unprecedented Lane debates. National Underground Railroad Freedom Center senior historian Carl Westmoreland.
Bradley told them, first case basis, what it was like to be enslaved, even though he wasn't abused. He didn't give them any color. He just talked about the fact that I'm here through the grace of someone who let me in, and I know that I'm not as well qualified academically as the others, but I want to learn, I'm going to learn.
The students voted to support an immediate end to slavery years before Frederick Douglass and decades before the Civil War. The school's trustees flipped.
They wanted to restrict the students, or they were going to expel them. And one of the restrictions would be, you can't do that kind of thing ever again. And the students said, bye.
Bradley and the Lane Rebels, as they were called, left with a major donor and went north to struggling Oberlin College. Historian Gary Kornblith.
This transforms Oberlin, which not only as a school is coeducational, but now it's also multiracial, and it transforms the town.
Kornblith says the town of Oberlin went from 0% African American to 20% in 25 years.
Oberlin is one of the first serious experiments in racially integrated living in the United States and perhaps the world.
But Bradley disappeared off the historical record after a couple of years, and there are no known photos of him anywhere. So the Bradley you see on this bench in Covington is more the essence of Bradley. His impact, though, stands.
Look at people like Bradley. You can start with the color, but just think about that he represents a ubiquitous voice, a wide canopy, if you will, of voices that are saying, I want to be a part of this.
In Covington,
I want to be a part of this.
I'm Evan Millward, 9 on your side.